When you first open the ECF Records Manager app, you'll be prompted to enter an account name and a password. For the very first time that you open the file, enter in the account name of admin and enter in the password that you were provided into the password field. Then, after you hit sign in, you'll immediately be presented with the change password dialog. You'll enter in the password you were originally provided into the old password field, and now provide a new password that you'll then use to access the admin account for administrative access to this file moving forward. Once the file is opened, go under the File menu, select Manage, and choose Security to see the other options available to you for setting up access to your app. You'll see here that there are 3 accounts already created: the guest account, which is not active, the admin account, which you just logged in using, and then one of a user account. You will create one of these user accounts for every one of the users for your app. Never share account and password information with multiple users. If you click the user account, you'll see that by default, the app is set up so that users can enter the account name of user with a blank password. That's what password expired means here. You'll notice that the Require Password Change on Next Login option is selected. This is how you prompt the user to change their password the next time they access the file. This option is not on by default, so you'll need to check that if you want this behavior. This is also how you can reset user passwords if they lose their password, because FileMaker stores passwords as a one-way encrypted hash, and as a result, there's no way to retrieve passwords. So just use this method to reset the password on the account next time the user logs in. Now, if you're interested in using external authentication to manage users and access to the app, then when you create an account, you can choose the External Server option under Authenticate Via. And you'll notice that when you select that in the dropdown, you no longer have an account name or password, but instead just a single group name. This is where you'll enter in the name of the external server group. For example, if you're using Active Directory, this is where you would put the Active Directory group name, being careful to add the exact syntax of the group name. So this option will allow all members of that group to gain access using the privilege set selected below. So here you see I have the user privilege set selected. So all members of the Active Directory group or external server group named users will gain access to the app using the rules set up in the user's privilege set. I can see these rules or manipulate them by clicking on the pencil icon to the right. Privilege sets determine what access your users will have within your app. And when you link a group name to a privilege set when using external authentication, then all members of that external authentication group will be controlled by the rules that you're setting up here when they're accessing their app. Now, if you're interested in creating your own privilege sets or modifying the existing ones, you'll select the Advanced Settings button from the left-hand corner, and then select the Privilege Set tab. Here you can create as many of your own privilege sets or modify the existing ones that shipped with the app. Now, if you're interested in using OAuth options for users to access this app, then you should be aware that Claris FileMaker supports Amazon, Google, and Microsoft Azure AD. As with all externally authenticated options, Claris FileMaker apps do not introduce additional password management requirements. And before you deploy this app, please become familiar with the Claris FileMaker Best Practices Security Guide. Never, ever, ever deploy your app with no passwords, and make sure that you're configuring a password for every user that's going to access this app. Integrating the ECF Records Manager app with your JamfPro account requires that you set up the Claris Connect Flow template, which you can do right inside the app. Now, before you do so, it's very important that you've done the following things. Make sure that you've set up security in your app. Make sure that this app has been uploaded to FileMaker server. Get your sign-in set up or your Claris ID account set up ahead of time. And make sure you have access to your JamfPro account information, specifically to log in to your account. This is traditionally a one-time setup, but it is required before you can import Jamf enrolled device information into the app. Start the configuration process by selecting the gear icon and navigating to the Import-Export tab. You'll be presented with the login screen for your instance of Claris Connect, which is why it was important that you've already set up your Claris ID, because you'll use the Claris ID to sign in. After you sign in, you'll see the introduction screen. Review the information and click Next. And select the Connect New Account option. This will present a dialog asking you to enter in information about your JamfPro account. Once completed, hit the Sign In button, and you'll be taken to a success screen confirming that you've connected to your JamfPro account. Now you'll see the Copy Webhook URL button. You'll select it, and then move your cursor into the field on the left-hand side that also says Webhook URL and paste the value into that field. Do the same for the API key button and field. When both of the fields on the left have been populated, you will see that you can now select the Test Connection button. The app will now communicate with you as it connects to your Claris Connect flow and confirms that your connection was successful. It is advised that you select the option to enable your flow history. And now your flow has been enabled and you're able to go back into the app and import data from your JamfPro account. Another way to save time entering data into the app is to import device data from Apple School Manager. While this step is not required, if you have your devices managed in Apple School Manager, this can be an easy way to get started using the ECF Records Manager app. First, you'll need to export a file from Apple School Manager. And when you do this export, make sure that you're exporting out the serial number and order number column. And then within the app, you'll go into your settings section under Imports and Exports. You'll simply select the button that says Import from Apple School Manager to start this process. Before you continue, you'll choose here whether or not you want to automatically flag all of the imported assets as included in ECF. This will make it easier to find these assets when you're searching in the app later. After you've made your selection, you'll select Continue to select Spreadsheet. This is where you'll choose the file and hit Open. And at this point, the app will import in all of your device records, leaving you with a found set of imported records in the Asset List view. If you select one of these records, you'll see that the ASM import brings in serial number and order number, and even selects a value in the Make field for you. You'll also see in the upper left-hand corner how many of these devices were actually imported into the ECF Records Manager app. While not required, another option for importing device information is to use the Import from JamfPro option. This can save you a lot of time by importing all of your enrolled device information at once. However, you must have already set up the Claris Connect connection. If you hit the gear icon and go over to Import Exports, you'll know whether or not you've set up the Claris Connect connection correctly because you should see Update Claris Connect Configuration below a button that says Import from JamfPro. If not, you'll see a button that'll take you to the configuration screen. And once you've configured your JamfPro account in the Claris Connect setup, you can now import in all of your JamfPro device data directly into the ECF Records Manager app, again, saving you countless hours of data entry. So once you've navigated to this settings screen, select the button that says Import from JamfPro. If you don't see that button, then you have not completed the Claris Connect setup. Follow the prompts by hitting Continue, and when the prompt indicates that the import is completed, then you can close the window and close the settings area and review all of the imported records. A count of the found set of all of the devices that have been imported will show up in the upper left-hand corner. And if the app identifies the existence of asset records with serial numbers that match the serial numbers in this Jamf import, those asset records will be updated rather than duplicated. Any new devices not matched are then added. For example, in this case, when I imported in 258 device records, the system identified that 49 of them already existed, and it simply updated those instead of duplicating them. Now, you may also notice that there's already images in here for some of these devices. These images were imported into your asset records based on a match that is part of the default images setup screen. And in this section, you can add or modify any of the existing default images to suit your needs. Keep in mind that they're matching on the make and model combination. You may also notice that on the records that were imported, you'll see that under the serial number in the list, it says a status of action required. In order to check any of these items out with this status designation, you have to first establish its initial location. So while you've imported all these devices, it's going to be necessary to check them into an initial location, or really alternatively, you could wait until you're going to check each one of them out and then first do this initial check-in, then check out the location. Now, in either case, the steps will be as follows. You'll navigate to the record of the asset that you want to check in to its initial location, select the check-in button, choose the original date that you first received the item, and then choose the initial storage location from a dropdown. But if you do not see anything in the dropdown, that's because this dropdown is based on field values, so you'll have to enter an initial value, at which time you'll see that and any other future values in this dropdown. Now hit the check-in button, and you'll see that it is logged on the date that you originally received the item, the original location where you placed the item, and it's available for checkout. While not required, another way to bring in data through batches is to import people data from an Excel spreadsheet. You can import people data from an Excel spreadsheet or an export from another system as long as you've got these required columns: first name, last name, person ID, and role. And you'll want to name the columns in the exact syntax that you see here. Now you can create these data files by exporting them from, let's say, a student information system, or really any other application that allows you to export to either an Excel spreadsheet or to a format that can be converted to an Excel spreadsheet first. After you've exported your data, in the app, you'll go to the settings section by hitting the gear icon, choose Import Exports, and down on the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a button that's called Import People. A brief dialog appears showing you the columns that are required from an import source. Now, these are just to serve as a guide, but remember, in your export file, you should name the columns first name, last name, person ID, and role. Now, if these match your source file, then you can select Continue to select Spreadsheet. At this point, you'll select the source file and hit Open. And then after importing, users with appropriate privileges will be able to click on any of these individuals and do things like delete records, like we'll do here because this happened to be the first row in the import source file. Or they can click into any of these other ones and make modifications. This, of course, is if you've allowed them to do so in the privilege set that you've assigned to the user's account. While there are various ways to import data in batches into the app, the ECF Records Manager app also allows for manual data entry of assets. For example, from the context of assets, simply select the plus button and enter the asset data in the appropriate fields using dropdowns for easier data entry. Keep in mind that storage location and model are required values. Once you're done, you can hit the Add button, and you'll see that your record has been created and is now part of your assets. Note that when you manually create an asset, this leaves the record in checked in mode. So if you've imported batches, you'll note that it leaves it where you still have to check it in and establish the original location. But since when you were manually entering the record, you did enter in the original date you received it and the original location where you placed it, that information is stored in the asset assignment history. The status of the asset is ready to be checked out. Once added, users can edit any of the records if, of course, you've given them access to do so, and you can even add people in a similar fashion. In this case, when you hit the plus button, it allows users to enter data directly into the fields. Users are able to add or edit all the information that they need by clicking into the fields, but you could choose to lock out any of the editing using privilege sets. Since one of the requirements of the ECF program is to also track which individuals are assigned different assets, the ECF Records Manager app comes complete with check-in and check-out functionality that automatically tracks all of the assignment history, linking assets in the system to people that are stored in the app. Now, if you've never given an asset a default location, you might notice a status of action required that's listed underneath the serial number in the list section on the left-hand side. This means that you will first have to check in an asset to a default location before you can check it out to a user. Now, the logic here is at some point you received the physical item and you put it somewhere. So you need to record when that happened and where you put it. So to do so, just simply hit the check-in button. And if you're selecting the check-in button on an item that has the designation of action required, all you'll have to do is put in the original check-in date, which could be in the past, and then choose the storage location where you originally put that device when you received it. Then you'll hit Check In. You'll now see this location listed in the asset assignment history. Additionally, the asset is now ready to be checked out to a user. So you can see the status has been changed to checked in. When you're ready to check out to a user, simply hit the checkout button and either choose from all the different users, or you can even use the quick find to find one quickly. Select the user. You'll see their name added, as well as the checkout date, which you can click in and change if you don't want to use today's date. Then you'll select the reserve until. This is the date that they're planning on having the device in their possession, and then hit checkout. And of course, you can see that added here as well. And since Claris FileMaker is a fully relational app, users can manage this in or out history within the context of an asset, or even if you go over to the person, you'll see the information listed under their record as well. This provides your device management team with a dashboard of all the assignment activity required to be compatible with the ECF Records program from any context. And when it's time to check an asset back in, you can locate the asset by either clicking in the search or doing a search and entering in any of the criteria to locate the appropriate asset record in the system, and then just hit the check-in button. Confirm the check-in date, and now choose the new storage location where you'll put the asset, and you'll see the individual's name who was originally assigned. Then hit check in. And of course, you'll see that transaction recorded in the asset assignment history, and the asset is now available to be checked out to another user. In addition to assignment history, you can also track any information related to a service performed on an asset, or even track when a device was reported missing, lost, or stolen. The ECF Records Manager app provides a log for storing that information here in the Service History section on the Asset Detail view. Hitting the plus button allows users to enter in any information about the last time the service was performed, or even track when the next service is needed, and store any notes that are required to identify what service was performed on the device. And this could also be where you can note whether the device was reported missing, lost, or damaged in order to meet ECF requirements. After you hit Add, you'll see that this is available in the Service History log on the bottom right-hand corner, and all of the service history for an asset can be viewed by clicking on this icon here. And as with any data in the app, this information could be exported if need be. You may also want to track documents that are related to assets. Clicking the paperclip icon in the upper right-hand corner of an asset record will invoke a list of attachments for that asset. And if you already have documents attached to an asset, you can use Quick Find or just scroll through the list to find the one that you're looking for. But to add a new attachment, select the plus button. So say, for example, here we want to attach a service order document. What I'll do is hit this button here, and I happen to know that this document is a PDF, so I'm going to select PDF. If not, you would select Other. I find that service order PDF, hit Insert, and you'll notice that I can preview the document as it's stored inside the application. As with any other document stored in a Claris FileMaker app, users can insert, preview, and even export any stored documents. And when you select Export, you can either open the file in its native application, or even create an email with a copy of this file as an attachment. These are all native capabilities of Claris FileMaker's very versatile container objects. The ECF Records Manager app ships with a series of default Apple device images like the one that you see here. This is how you're seeing images in your record when either you import them or manually enter a new asset record. You could always override one of these default images by selecting this icon here to add your own image, and then upload an image from your computer to replace it. But if you're interested in managing all of the default images, simply hit the gear icon in the upper right-hand corner and navigate to the Default Images tab that you see here in the Setup screen. Here you can review, delete, edit any of the default images that ship with the app, or you can even add your own. If you add your own, make sure to include both a make and a model value, along with an image to make sure that any new records created that match the make and model values will then present the image that you just added. You can add images from any maker model, and you're welcome to use images that you take yourself. You may also have documents that aren't specifically related to an asset, but more importantly, may be documents required for compliance within the ECF program. Users of the ECF Records Manager app can leverage Claris FileMaker container objects to store forms like the FCC Form 471 or any other document that might be required for a future audit. To access these documents, select the gear icon, navigate to the Documents tab, and retrieve them by going into the Quick Find here, or even scrolling through the list that you'll see when you have documents on the left-hand side. And when you locate them, you can either delete them or edit the information, or if you don't have any, like here, you can hit the plus button to add your own. So say, for example, I want to store a completed FCC Form 471. I'll select this icon, and since I happen to know the document that I'm going to save is a PDF, I'll choose the PDF option, locate the document on my machine, hit Insert to upload from my computer, and now you'll see that it has been created, the document name was automatically entered, and because I chose PDF for a PDF document, I can interact with the document and preview it in full screen. When it comes time to export these documents, select the export icon on the document record that you've chosen, and you'll be presented with the option to either export all or just active. So in this case, if I hit active, it'll just export the one document that I have selected, or if I hit all, it will allow me to export all of the documents that are stored in my version of the ECF Records Manager app. I'll just want to make sure that I choose the file type of FileMaker when I do that so that I can export to container fields. So here I'll just hit active, and we'll see the familiar export field to file dialog box where we have the same options to either automatically open the file in its native application, or let's say we want to create an email with the file as attachment so I can send it to someone. In this case, I'll hit save. And you'll see here, because I chose the option to email, it's created an email with a copy of this file as an attachment, and it has also added another copy in the location where I chose to export. The native ability to store and retrieve unlimited documents will provide peace of mind to anybody managing assets so that they'll know exactly where to find and export any type of FCC audit document at any time. Participants in the Emergency Connectivity Fund program are required to retain records related to their participation in the program sufficient to demonstrate compliance with all program rules for at least 10 years from the last date of service or delivery of equipment. While the school or library is responsible for retaining all of the information required by the FCC's rules, it does not need to be managed or maintained in a particular format. Schools and libraries can determine how they format, extract, and retain the required data. And one of the great things about Claris FileMaker is that it allows you to export data out of your system in a number of different formats. First, you'll need to navigate to a layout that shows the data you want to export. So for example, let's say I want to export assets. So I'll navigate to a layout based on assets like the one you see here. And then I can go under the File menu, choose File, and then Export Records. In addition to choosing the name of the file and the location, you'll see down here all the different types that are available. Some of them are very versatile, like comma-separated values, or you can choose specific ones, like saving to an Excel workbook or another FileMaker profile. After you choose the name, the location, and the type, you'll hit the Save button and then select the fields that you want to export, along with the order that you want them to be listed. So you'll notice that if you don't see your fields, you can always choose the drop-down that you see here and choose Current Table. And that's because by default, FileMaker only shows the fields on the layout that you were on when you initiated the export. If you choose Current Table, it'll show you all the different fields that are defined inside the table. You double-click all the fields that you want, and that'll move them over to the right into Export Order. And you can even manage the order in which they'll appear in your export. Reading from top to bottom will be the order in which they're read in columns from left to right. When you're satisfied with all the fields that you want to export and the order in which you want to export them, hit the Export button. And now FileMaker has created that export in the location that you've specified using all of the columns that you selected. The ECF Records Manager app also provides export functions for all data over here in the Setup section. Just select the gear icon, choose the tab in the settings for import and exports, and you'll see on the left-hand side all of the different export options that you have available to you. Simply hitting any of these buttons will allow you to choose the location, the file type, and the name of all of the assets that are going to be exported out of the application. So here, when I hit save, you'll see that it's exporting out asset history. Now in this case, it's already got some fields selected. The app pre-selects fields that are relevant to an ECF audit, but you can choose your own as well. After you hit export, you'll see that the file is now saved to the location that you chose with all of the columns that you selected, and it reflects a row for every record of data that's currently stored in the ECF Records Manager app. Like any other app created on the Claris FileMaker platform, you can create custom layouts designed specifically for access on different devices. The primary asset and people layouts are presented in a layout that is a hybrid for desktop, web, or as you see here, an iPad. Claris FileMaker apps can run on iOS devices natively, allowing them to leverage some of the hero features on the device, for example, barcode scanning. The ECF Records Manager app has a special layout and workflow designed specifically for the iPhone. All you'll have to do is connect to your hosted file while you're on the iPhone, and the app will respond with the appropriate workflow. Now first, you'll need a free copy of Claris FileMaker Go for 19. You can download the app from the App Store on your device for free. After you've installed the app, you'll open up Claris FileMaker Go for 19, select the host option on the bottom right-hand corner, and hit the plus button in the upper left-hand corner. Here, you'll enter in the IP address of the server where you're hosting your ECF Records Manager app. Once you've added your server, you can click on the server name, and it'll show you a list of apps that you have access to. After you successfully log in on the iPhone, you'll be taken to the asset tracking list, where you can select from one of the devices to bring up the asset detail. This will allow you to initiate a check-in or check-out function. And you'll see it's the same type of functionality that you have available to you on the desktop or iPad or on the web, but fit for the form factor of the iPhone. So this way you can be on the go when you're checking in and out assets.